Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this can be my review for Gotham, Season 1, Episode 4, Arkham. And I love this episode. Like, this episode was the first perfect episode of Gotham. I loved everything about this episode. I loved the crime that was going on. I had no problems with this episode whatsoever. And here's the thing, guys. I have had a lot of problems with Gotham. I've complained a lot about it. I've said, it needs to improve on a bunch of things. And this episode, it really did improve. And I said in the last episode, I can really feel Gotham is getting better. And after this episode, oh yeah, Gotham is definitely getting better because I love this episode. This episode was just amazing. I loved it. The acting improved in this episode. The storylines improved. The storylines are more interesting now. Like, this episode was just perfect. I have no problems with it. And honestly, it was a build type of episode, it was, but that's why it was so good, because it's all about crime. There's so much crime about to go down, and there's so much going on. I can't wait for it all. I actually really liked the crime of the week in this episode. I was into it. I normally am not really into that, and I was a fan of it in this episode. Sorry, I'm getting a Skype call now, guys. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm telling my friend here that I can't talk to him on Skype right now. Sorry about that, guys. That was really unprofessional. I didn't expect that to happen. But, basically, this episode, I loved it. Let's just get to it. So I love the way last week's episode ended. Last week's episode ended, of course, where Barbara, where basically Oswald came to visit Jim. So Barbara calls Jim to the door, and it's Oswald. And he greets Jim by name and tells him, "You must be Barbara." And, of course, it's a very awkward encounter because, of course, Jim told, Oswald to not come back to Gotham. So Oswald introduced himself, and I'm kind of like, okay, what is exactly going to happen here? What is he about to say to Jim? He introduced himself as Peter Humboldt, and I thought this was really funny. He tells Barbara she's beautiful, and she offers him a drink, but Jim says it's a work thing and walks him out. She doesn't want him involved. Pretty much because he doesn't want Barbara involved. So he says, look, I'm going to deal with him, and he takes him to an alley, slams him against the wall, and says if Falcone finds out he's alive, they're both dead. And Jim says he should put a bullet in his head right now, which he's probably going to. So Oswald says he wants to help him, and tells Jim he's the best man in Gotham. And Oswald tells him that Fish, Falcone, and even his partner are all lying to him. He grabs a broken bottle, hands it to him, he says, "Trust me or kill me." He tells him he can save Gotham, and promises to be his spy. So he's kind of working for Jim right now. And he says there's a war coming. And Oswald says it's all about Arkham, and they hear some kids shouting, and Jim turns, and when he turns back, Oswald is gone. So I thought, I actually thought that was a perfect way to start the episode. I'm like, wow, this episode's really good so far, because the thing with this episode was, it took itself seriously. It had a serious crime going on here. The crime in this episode was very well done. We see Councilman Jenkins and an aide. They're approached by a man in the parking lot. He says he's a, constituent who voted for him. He says he wants to show him something. So Jenkins asks him to come to his office. The guy has a briefcase and assembles a silver tube device. And he tells the guy to look into the end of it. And he shoots the guy dead. Like, he literally shoots him in the eye. And I was like, okay, this guy is awesome. Like, this is what I call a kick-ass villain. A guy who is a real threat. Not some guy who ties balloons to people. Like, that was so stupid last week. I could not take that seriously at all. But this I really could take seriously, and I thought this was, like, really well done. I was like, yes, Gotham is awesome now. I love this. So, he tells Jenkins he's dead. He ejects the little dagger from the device into the councilman's shoulder, runs back into his office to get away, but the guy falls. He tells Jenkins he really did vote for him, and he kills him too. So, perfect way to start the episode. So then at work we see Essen, and she's telling Harvey he caught a homicide, and he tries to get out of it, but she won't relent. She gives him the Jenkins case, and she says it looks like a robbery, and she thinks it was random, but tells him to work it anyway. And Harvey says he knows just where to start. So then we see Fish. Now, I'm normally not into Fish's plot. I normally am not into what's going on with her, but this episode, I was into what was going on with Fish. I really was. I thought what was going on with Fish was actually very interesting. Because basically Fish is having all these girls sing for her. She sees this girl Plenty sing. And she says she needs more than a nice voice and a pretty face for the job. She has in mind. And she kind of wants to seduce her, basically. And she asks if she likes boys or girls. She says she likes boys. And Fish tells her to pretend she's a boy and seduce her. The girl touches her shoulders, and Fish is not impressed. She says, at least you can sing. And Butch really asks, well, what's going on here? And she says she's not looking for a girl. She's not looking for a girl. She's looking for a weapon. Pretty much because Oswald's gone, she has no one. Because Oswald's gone, she has no one, and of course she wants to kill Falcone, but she's not gonna do it by herself. No, she's gonna end up in jail if she does that. So she wants like sort of henchmen. So I think that's very interesting. Plus the thing is, Fish is a character that we've never really seen before, so it's really cool to see what they're gonna do with her. So I think her plot's just so much more interesting now, and I'll get to why. So Harvey and Jim have Nicky, who is a known mugger, in interrogation. He tells him he doesn't kill people, and Jim says they found a shank in his backpack, and Harvey lied and said they have witnesses. And Jim gives up and walks out, and he asks Alvarez about the box on his desk, and he says it's evidence from the crime scene, and there's a proposal for the Arkham development in with the evidence. And the mayor is holding a press conference about the project and says the Waynes were working on the area to establish affordable housing for lower income families. And he says the old asylums will be taken away and replaced with a new state-of-the-art facility. And Maroni then comes to the Italian restaurant and tells his people he's getting a lucrative new deal and says it's about land. And Oswald overhears this. You know, he's still pretending to be Italian to work in that restaurant. And Oswald really is a genius character, I gotta say. He really is a genius. So Jim then goes to see Alfred about the Wayne development plan for Arkham because he wants to know what's going on there. And Alfred says Falcone is working it now, and now it's the Wayne plan in his name only. So Alfred says that it's this imposing plan by Maroni, and Bruce comes in and asks if it's related. And I really like the scene because, again, last episode we realized that Bruce wants to do detective work. He wants to find out what's going on in Gotham. He wants to stop the crime in Gotham. And again, this is all setting up for him becoming a vigilante. You can slowly see that Bruce is probably going to become a vigilante. You can already tell. So Bruce explains the importance of the new asylum program. He says he doesn't want his parents' dream to die with them. And Jim says the Arkham deal could ignite a gang where between Falcone and Maroni. And Bruce tells him he has to stop it. And Jim gets a call from Harvey and says Councilman Zeller has been abducted. So that was really interesting. And the councilman belongs to Maroni. So in the ruins of the old Arkham Asylum, the guy wheels a 50-gallon drum in and pries the lid off, and there's a man in the barrel. And it's that same guy again. Like, I was like, okay, this is about to be awesome, because the first kill the guy did was awesome, so I was like, okay, this one's going to be awesome as well. You know, I knew that. I could just tell it was going to be awesome. So his kidnapper pulls gasoline in it. It's the same killer that took out the other councilman. And he says if it was up to him, he wouldn't do this way. But this says it's what the customer wants. Says the customer is always right. Zeller promises to change his vote and says to tell Falcone his kidnapper doesn't relent. And Zeller dies screaming in a fireball. That was crazy. Like, that was a crazy scene when that happened. So Essence, like, says this can't be a coincidence, which it can't be. You can't just have the two of the same people die on the same night. It obviously makes sense. Also, I will say one thing I do like about Gotham. I like that all the crimes are at night. It makes the show darker. It works better. That's something I like about it. I don't know. That's something I just personally like. So Jim says about the Arkham votes, and one councilman was Maroni's, and the others was Falcone's. And it says Maroni started, and Falcone retaliated. And Harvey asked Jim how he knows so much all of a sudden. And I was wondering that too. So then we see Edward. And of course, Edward's just a supporting character. He's just there to be funny. And for once, he's not there just because, oh, he's going to be the Riddler. He's there because he actually has a paradox for them. He says the ME reports show that the fatal wound the first killing was from a metal spike, and Zeller also had a similar injury. Now, the one thing I will say about Edward is I like his character, but, like, he's only there for one scene. I wish they would give him a little bit more to do, but it wasn't a complaint. It did not bother me in this episode. It bothered me a lot in the first two episodes, but it did not bother me in this episode at all. So Jim wonders what killer would work for both Falcone, and Maroni. And Harvey says only in Gotham, which is true. Only in Gotham that would happen. So Oswald peeks into the bathroom where they're counting money, and his boss chews him out. He tells him to keep his sniveling nose to himself or else. And Oswald said, yes, sir. And Harvey and Jim come to the jail and bring some smokes to an inmate. And Harvey says he's looking for a killer and describes the killer. And the guy says, and we find out what the killer is. His name is Gladwell, and he works out of the Lansky building in Midtown, and they go and work the building floor by floor, and the receptionist is on one floor. The receptionist says Gladwell works in human resources and directs them to his office. And Gladwell sees them, creeps out, and it's a very well done scene. His coworker says he left out the back, and Jim tells Harvey to stay while he goes to look out for the guy. And he hears a noise, pulls out his gun, and Gladwell assembles his little tube weapon and hides in wait for Jim. And Harvey calls out to Jim and says he found something, and he walks away. And then Harvey shows him these clippings about the councilman, and Gladwell's desk, and he says he loves the easy ones. So they hear a noise, and they almost shoot a woman who was stealing paper clips from the supply closet. Like, okay, that was really intense. And there's a card in his stuff with 3 letters. Those letters are C, L, and M. But they don't know what it means. I myself was like, what does C, L, and M mean? So then we get a very good scene. I thought the scene was amazing. Bruce wakes up of a nightmare about his parents shooting. He's still having nightmares about it, which is understandable. He saw them die in front of him. It makes sense. Alfred comes in and says he heard screaming. He asks Bruce if he was in it, and the boy says, not this time. And Bruce asks Alfred to show him all the Arkham files. This makes Bruce even more interested, in the detective work. And Alfred asks why, and he says he's looking for a connection between the murdered councilman and his parents' murder, because there's obviously some sort of connection there. Like, Bruce really is a genius. There definitely is a connection there. So, gunman breaks into the Italian restaurant to pull off a robbery, and Oswald hides in the back, and most people are scrambling beneath tables. Another guy lies shot dead on a table. It's like a really intense scene here, definitely. So Maroni's men follow a blood trail into the kitchen and open a freezer where they find Oswald quivering. And he says Lou was hit in the stomach. He has a bag of money and says he managed to hide that one, but he couldn't get the rest. So he said the gunmen wore masks, and they tell him to save for the boss. And I thought this next scene was amazing. So really intense stuff, but this next scene, I'm like, oh yes, definitely this is the best episode of the season. Just because of the way the scene worked, it was perfect. Jim comes home early for work and tells Barbara he missed her, and she says the long hours make her worry, and he says he's doing his job, and she asks if he is, and he asks what that means, and she says he's keeping secrets from her, and he agrees, and she says it's part of his job, because, she's been very suspicious of him since episode 1, and she asks about Cobblepot, and he asks how she knows that name, and she asks who he is, and he won't answer, she's asking about Oswald, and then he asks if, Renee came to see her, and he asks what's going on between, he can clearly tell there's something going on between her and Renee, you can just tell, and asks why she keeps stopping by, and I'm glad that she told him. She decides to tell him that they were in a relationship before she met Jim, and he's stunned. He is so stunned at this. He never thought that his wife was bisexual. He never thought she would be bisexual. Plus, she never told him this, and it's very important information. And she says it lasted a year, and she broke up with, Renee and moved on. She tells Jim he's the one she wants to spend the rest of her life with, and she asks if she's made because her ex is a woman, and he says he's mad because she lied, and, obviously he wants to, basically, and I agree with what he says, definitely. He's not mad because, her ex is a woman. He's mad because she lied to him. If she would have just told him that, I think Jim would have been fine with it. He would have said, okay, fine, that was in the past, that's fine. Because, if she wants to be bi, let her be bi. That's what I say. But, love is love, but that's different. That's not what this is about. This is about, her lying to him. I definitely agree with what Jim is saying, that she should not have lied to him like that. So, Maroni then rants and blames the robbery on Falcone, and he tells Frankie, not Frankie Grande, just not Frankie Grande. I'm sorry, every time I see Frankie, that's what I think of. He wants it in back, and Oswald washes dishes in the back, and Maroni tells Frankie to send him over. And Maroni says he did what for him did not go unnoticed, and Oswald says he just wishes he could have saved more of his money. And he tells Oswald he's the new restaurant manager since the position recently became available. And Oswald said he won't let him down, he smiles. And then Harvey tells him that the real Richard Gladwell is dead, and he's been dead for 5 years, with the same pointy implement, but the killer kept paying the guy's rent. And I thought this was a very interesting clue. He says no one noticed he was gone, so Jim asks about the 3 letters, and Harvey said it's a waste of time. Doesn't matter, so Jim calls him lazy, which he kind of is. Harvey definitely is lazy, and says the Arkham vote is tomorrow, and the worst case is a major gang war, but they may have to be able to stop it if they find this guy. However, Harvey says he's going to work this case the way he wants it to, and for the rest of the episode, you kind of see the two of them divided, which I like. I like seeing that the two of them have different visions. I definitely like that. I like that there's definitely, tension going on between... Sorry, guys, I was interrupted there, but I'm going to continue. And basically, Harvey says he's going to work the case his way. He basically has his own way of doing things, and I think that's definitely very interesting. And Jim says to tell her that he said hi. He knows he's going to see Fish. And then another girl auditions for Fish, and she seems to like this one better. This girl definitely is better. She's definitely better at what Fish wants her to do. Because, Fish, again, is not looking for girls. She's looking for girls who want to fight. That's what she's looking for. She's looking for, weapons, so they can take out Falcone. And she asks this girl her name, and the girl says Liza, and she asks how long she's been singing, and she says she hasn't been singing lawn. And she asks if she likes girls or boys, and she says boys once again. So Fish offers this girl a job, and now she's willing to do what it takes to have it all. And Fish tells her to seduce her, and this time the girl does something completely different than what Plenty did. Girl gets close and flirty, and kisses her deeply, sips from her drink, and the second that she did, I'm like, alright, this girl's gonna get hired. There's no questioning here. This girl is definitely going to get hired. So, basically, she walks off, and then Harvey comes in, and Fish asks if she sees something he likes, and he says he does now. And he asks her about Gladwell, and she says she knows him by reputation only, and he asks if she can find him, and Fish asks what's in it for me, and he says he'll owe her. And she agrees and says Falcone will get someone else to take his place. And she says Falcone can't afford to let Maroni get the vote because it will show that he's old and weak, and he asks if that's bad for her. And Fish says not to worry because she always has a plan B. So, she has a plan B and everything. And I thought that scene was definitely good because, you can kind of see that, again, Harvey and Jim definitely have different visions. So Oswald calls Jim at work and says he has a tip. He says Maroni put out another hit on someone on Falcone's side, and he says it's going down tonight. And Jim asks how he knows, and Oswald said Gotham is his home, which it is, even though he's told, Oswald to leave Gotham. Honestly, Oswald being back in Gotham is a good thing for Jim, even though he doesn't want Oswald to be in Gotham. So I think that definitely is very interesting. So Jim asks for a list of officers working security at the mayor's event tonight, and the three guys' list names start with C, L, and M, and the certain mayor is Maroni's next target. And Jim heads to the mayor's residence and says his life is in danger, and says his police detail is gone, and someone is likely on the way to kill him. So the mayor says he has to get something from his safe, and they go inside, and it's awesome. This was an awesome scene. I thought the scene was really intense. It was really awesome. Like, alright, it's heating up. This is getting really awesome. So Gladwell lurks outside the rain, and Jim tells him they have to go now and asks where he can take him. And the mayor asks about the police station. Jim says he's not sure he'd be safe there, and he says he can take him to his sister's place across town. And Gladwell assembles his weapons and heads up to the stairs, and Jim opens the door, finds the guy there. Gladwell knocks him down, and Jim loses his gun. So, lost his gun. So they run back upstairs to hide, and Gladwell shoots through the door, and he and Jim end up in a really, huge fight, crazy fight, really intense fight. Probably the most intense fight scene we've seen so far, which I really liked. So the mayor backs away, trying to hide behind his briefcase, and Gladwell has Jim down and tries to use his weapon on Jim, and he lets Jim go and turns around to face Harvey, and the guy makes one last move to try to kill the mayor, and Harvey shows up, and luckily he saves Jim. I wasn't sure if Harvey would, because, Harvey had a different vision, but luckily Harvey saved the day. I kind of wish he didn't, because I would have wanted to see this, I would want to see this not work for Jim, but Jim gets his gun back, and Harvey drills the guy full of lead, and that was just awesome. That was awesome when that happened. So Barbara then comes to see Jim at work, and she says she's sorry and should have told him about Renee before. And he asks why she didn't tell him. And she said basically because she's a woman who works with him. And she asks again about Oswald, and he asks why she can't drop it, and he says it's work. And I like her point here, because if she can tell him a secret, why can't he tell her? Now, it does make sense, because in certain jobs, you can't tell them what you're doing. For example, my dad works in the military. I'm just saying, he works in the military. And he can't tell us everything he's doing just because it's classified information. There's certain jobs where it's just classified informations. So definitely something like this is classified information. I think it definitely was very well done. So he asks why she can't drop it, and she tells him he has to make a choice to let her in or let her go, and she walks away as Jim watches her go. So my question is, I really feel like they are going to call off their marriage here, because they're engaged. We know that they are engaged, and I really feel at this point they're going to call off their marriage. I just feel like they're going to. So Fish has both Liza and Plenty at the docks, and she says she can't decide between them, and so they have to decide for her. And basically Liza asks if she wants them to fight for it, and they do. And, she's just standing there, casually. I'm like, okay. And Liza literally knocks her down, brutally beats Plenty, smashes her head in the concrete, and I'm like, yep, she's gonna get it. I knew the second we saw Liza, she was gonna get it. She spits out some blood, and she's like, so when do I start? And Fish is, so pleased about that. And honestly, that was awesome to watch, because, again, I've not been into Fish's plot, and that was, probably the best moment I've seen of Fish's plot so far. So The thieves are then counting their money from the Maroni robbery, and Oswald comes in. They pull their guns, but then they put him down once they see it's Oswald, and he has a bakery box for them, and they tell him they are happy to rob anyone he wants, and he says he brought cannoli and hands it over. And he tells them to eat up and says that they deserve it, and they all dig in, and then they offer him one, but he declines, and I'm like, okay, clearly he did something, because, like, Oswald definitely, he's very smart, he probably did something. I don't know exactly what he did, but I definitely feel like he did something. So they pull out their guns, but put them, and basically then they see that the mayor is holding a press conference, and Jim and Harvey are watching. And the mayor said it's a compromise that will benefit the citizens of Gotham, and he says it's the best of both plans: low income housing plus a waste disposal location. And Maroni's thrilled and says it's about time the city stopped feeding him scraps, and I thought that was definitely very well done. So the reporter asks about Arkham, and the mayor says they will reopen it. And Fish and Liza are watching the press conference, and you can tell that Fish and Liza have their own little plan, which I thought was definitely very well done. I really like this scene. She says that Falcone took a body shot, and she wishes she'd take a few more, and she hired the girl just in time because she wants Liza to do the dirty work for her, which is going to be very interesting. So Alfred and Bruce watch as the mayor says he thinks the Waynes should have been proud, and Jim is there and explains that the mayor was scared for his life, so he gave some of the project to each of the crime bosses, and Jim says it likely stopped a war. But Bruce says everything his parents work for is falling into the hands of the criminals, and Jim says it's not too late, and Bruce asks him if he really thinks Gotham can be saved. And Jim says he thinks it's worth trying, and Oswald zips up the bag of cash, leaves his dead cronies on the floor, and, you know, at this point, it seems like that's this scene in the episode, but then we find out right away, I knew it, Oswald spiked it, and he leaves him right on the floor. Looks like the dessert he brought was just desserts, and that's how the episode ends. And I loved every minute of this episode. I thought it was fantastic, and there was a lot to definitely talk about here. First of all, my prediction for Barbara and Jim is that they are going to call off their marriage. I just feel like it's not working between them. They can't trust each other. She doesn't trust him right now. He doesn't trust her. And I definitely feel like they're going to probably call off their marriage. I can just already tell that they're probably just going to call it off. And honestly, it's best if they do. I definitely feel like they're going to, I don't know why. I feel like they're going to call it off their marriage. As far as Bruce goes, I like seeing Bruce be more of a detective. I think this is very interesting what's going on there. Jim and Harvey, they definitely have different perspectives, and it was cool to see that in this episode, that they definitely have different ways of doing things. I thought that was definitely a very well done scene. Because, you know, Jim's the more serious one, Harvey's the funnier one. Harvey doesn't take things as seriously as Jim. I thought that was definitely very well done. And I like that they used Fish a lot better in this episode. Fish, what is Fish going to do with Liza? Liza is definitely going to work for her and try to kill Falcone, but the question is, how are they going to do it? I feel like they're going to do it in a way that is very subtle, a way that no one can tell what they're doing, and I feel like that's just how they're going to approach this, because that's the way they need to approach this, in my opinion. If they want to approach this well, you know, they have to do it that way. So, my other question is what's going to happen with Oswald. Obviously, he spiked the cannolis, and he's in trouble. Is he really working for Jim? I don't really know. What did you guys think of the crime in this episode? I thought the crime was awesome. I thought the crime was definitely really good in the episode. Maroni, I really like Maroni. Now I think Maroni and Falcone, it's definitely going to be... I definitely feel like there's going to be a battle between them. I don't think this war was stopped. In my opinion, I don't think it was. I personally just don't think the war was stopped. But then, if you guys saw this episode, overall, I thought this episode was amazing. I loved it. Best episode of the season by far. First perfect episode of Gotham. I was so into this episode. That's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for The Flash. Actually, no. I think it'll be for another classic horror movie review, because I want to try to do one of those tomorrow. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.